Hi guys. Okay, what we are going to do today is finish a piece of art. If I could get it out. There we go. Okay, what we're going to do today is finish a piece of art that my daughter started and asked me to finish. So Sparkle Bee started this and I'm gonna go ahead and finish it for her. The reason we were keeping this in a plastic bag is because this part here is sticky and we wanted it to stay sticky and not end up with cat hair all over it. We have our little guide here that tells us what beads are supposed to go with which, and we've got a ton of different beads here. I guess they're not beads. Oh, look at that. That one's got a, I don't know if you can see that very clearly or not. It's got a purple one in there. But we got all these different beads. And one of the cool things about this is they give you lots of extras. At least this package came with a bunch of extra pieces. So I've got this in here. It has all of these extras. So I've got extra purples and all of those other colors that are in here. I no longer have, or I am out of the sandwich bags, so everything's gonna get kind of stuffed in there now. But I do have tape. Over the holidays, I lost my tapes. We have electrical tape here. This is not its intended purpose. And then I've got some kid safety scissors. Let's go ahead and just pick a color and start with it. We're gonna start with this color here. It is A10, and if we look here, A10 is the funny looking T's, which are here and up there. Perfect. So I'm just gonna cut this open with my child safety scissors. Now, if you haven't done this before, totally cool. You come with this little tray. Sorry, my shadow's super heavy tonight. Comes with this little tray. You just dump some of them into the tray, kind of shake it so that they're upright. And then you have this cool little tool here. It's got some wax that you can put into the bottom. So you just take this and stab it. I already have some in there. And then it's super chill. You just take and tap the beads so that it gets stuck onto the end there. And then you find where it goes. And you pop it on just like that. While finishing this, we'll listen to the second part of The Forbidden Valley by Roger Romero. If you haven't heard the first part, please check out my videos Pumpkaboo Lantern and A Life of Painting. Thank you, and enjoy.
The empty street walls gave way to a large open courtyard. In the center of the open courtyard stood a single pool, the pool from her dreams, with burn marks reaching up from the ground. Large chains hung limp from the top, swinging softly back and forth. The clinking noise came as the chain tapped the pool. "This is spooky," Brett said, almost in a whisper. "Is this your dream?" Emily nodded slowly. A large thud could be heard in the distance. It sounded like an axe hitting a tree. If the silent thud didn't seem so menacing, Emily would have laughed at the thought of dwarfs working in their mines. "The noise stopped," Sarah said. Emily realized it was silent again. In her dream, she had thought of the surroundings as being dead or dying, but now that she was here, she saw the small seed of life growing up through the cracked stones. A soft, sweet smell filled the air as a light breeze blew through the courtyard. The buildings looked the same as the ones in her dreams, but they looked more majestic, as though the earth had reclaimed the city for its own. A cartwheel lay on its side, the remainder of the cart reclaimed by the environment it was made from. Trees scattered along the edge of the courtyard, next to the old stone walls, cast iron shadows underneath them as the sun hung high in the sky. A distant thud came echoing down the streets. Emily felt at peace, but Brett and Sarah looked scared. The thud was getting closer as Brett moved behind Emily. Sarah seemed to vanish. Thoughts raced through her mind. Was this her dream? Was this real? Something moved just out of sight. Then in the distance, a form could be seen slowly moving towards them. Each step it took made a large thud sound. As she watched the form move closer, she could tell it was a large orc with pale skin, dark, almost black eyes, and black hair. Larger than most orcs, he carried an axe in one hand and a sack over his shoulder with the other hand. He stopped when he saw Emily staring at her, the sack falling from his shoulder to the ground. He took a couple more steps forward and stopped, one hand rubbing his eyes. He took another step and stopped again. He was almost in the courtyard. Brett cowered behind Emily as Emily looked straight at the stranger. The stranger took another step forward, entering the courtyard, raising a hand in an unsure wave. "Hello?" the stranger said with a questioning look on his face. Emily slowly raised her hand in a sort of half wave. "Hi," she almost whispered. A huge smile crossed the stranger's face as he ran across the courtyard. Brett started to scream and run in the opposite direction as the large orc with an axe in one hand reached Emily. He grabbed her and threw her up in the air like a rag doll. He caught her on her way back down and gave her one of the biggest hugs she'd ever had. Then he set her down softly. Brett tripped and was laying on the ground just a few feet away. The stranger tried to apologize. Tears ran down his face, but no words came out. Then he saw the scared boy cowering on the ground and laughed, a deep, burly laugh that echoed off the walls. "You don't need to worry, boy. I can't hurt you," the large orc said. Not convinced that it was true, Brett scooted slowly away. The orc laughed again and swung the large axe at Brett, hitting him square on the head. The axe bounced harmlessly to the side, not even leaving a scratch. "See, I can't hurt you," the large orc said again. Brett looked like he was going to pass out, and suddenly Sarah was back standing next to Emily. "This one is sneaky," he said, looking at Sarah. "Who are you?" Emily asked. Sarah stared at the orc, looking a little nervous. The orc looked confused. "Can you please say something again?" Emily looked at him puzzled. "Are you really here?" he said. "Yes," Emily said more confidently as the large orc seemed to relish the sound. "Who are you?" Emily said again. "And how long have you been here?" "Who am I?" he said. "Let's go to my hut and I will tell you my story over dinner, or what I can remember of it." "Emily," Sarah said, "we need to get back." The orc laughed again. "I don't think you'll be missed for a year or so," he chuckled. Brett stood up slowly, still looking dazed. "I agree. Let's go." The large orc looked hurt as a tear escaped one eye. Emily looked at the large orc and reached out and touched his face. "I need to hear his story," she said. The orc smiled and said, "Then follow me." He headed straight across the courtyard from where he came. "Come on, we will go have dinner. Come on." He motioned for them to follow. Emily followed him, and Sarah and Brett followed more reluctantly behind. Sarah whispered in Emily's ear, "He's nuts." Emily gave her a goofy look and continued following the orc. Not far up the road, there stood a small hut made of stone with a wood roof. It looked old, but had kept in good repair. There was a fire pit in front of the hut with log benches surrounding it and a tripod set over the fire. A small fire burned under a pot that hung from the tripod. "Sit, sit, I will get some bowls," he said as he went into the hut. He came back a minute later with several bowls and a handful of wood which he threw on the fire. Emily had sat down, but Sarah and Brett remained standing. The orc smiled again and told them to sit as he dished up a bowl of vegetable stew. It smelled amazing as he handed Emily her bowl first, then Sarah and Brett. Lastly, he dished himself up a bowl and sat down near Emily. Sarah sat on the other side of Emily, and Brett sat across the fire, still looking stunned. After devouring the stew, which was the best he'd ever had, Brett got seconds and thirds. As he refilled his bowl each time, he moved a little closer to the rest of them. "Tell me, what is your world like?" the orc asked. "Our world?" Emily thought. Then ideas came to her as she told the orc of her life with her papa on the farm. She related their seemingly boring life with everyday chores. The orc seemed to hang on every word like it was a show he had never seen before. His face would rise and fall with the events of Emily's life as she told them. He seemed especially sad as Emily related the death of her mother, but happiness filled her face as she told of her relationship with her papa. It seemed like she talked for hours as the orc just listened. Then Emily fell silent. The orc looked at the sky. It's getting late. You'd better get some rest. I'll tell you my story tomorrow. The sun still hung at about noon in the sky, but after the stew filled their bellies, a nap sounded like a good idea. It's been a good long year. You should be warm out here, the orc continued. He stood, stretched, and entered the hut. Sarah lay down next to Emily, and Brett leaned against the log. I'll keep watch, Brett said. The warmth from the sun, or the small fire, and the food made the girls sleepy. They were almost out immediately. Brett closed his eyes just for a second. Emily awoke to the orc putting more wood on the fire and adding some more vegetables to the stew. Good morning, he said, and looked up at the sky. The sun was almost directly overhead. Sarah and Brett were still asleep. Why doesn't the sun move here? Emily asked. The orc half smiled. That is part of my curse. Wake your friends, and I will tell you my story. Emily touched Sarah on the arm, and she jumped up, ready to kill. Brett was still in a sitting position and fell over when Sarah jumped, waking up and rubbing his eyes. Oh man, my mom is going to kill me. I have to get home. The orc laughed again. Sit down, eat, and I will tell you my story, he said. This is my story. Remember me, he quietly added. Many people have called me many names over the years, but my mother, who named me, called me Jasper. I grew up on a farm much like yours, Emily. I had a wife and 3 sons. One day, I was traveling through the woods on a journey to the great city, and a stranger crossed my path. He was almost dead and carried a scythe. He claimed it was the one magical scythe from the cultivator. I didn't believe him, but he died there in my arms. I did not know who he was, so I buried him there in the woods with the scythe. The next day as I traveled, I heard dogs in the distance. They grew closer, and soon I was surrounded by humans. They bound me and took me to the city. I was coming here anyway, so I figured things would have cleared up once we arrived. As we entered the city, I saw all the mass graves on either side of the gates. The only living were those with me. They took me to the city center and tied me to the post. Without asking any questions, they lit the fire. I tried to speak, but they would not allow it and gagged me. As the fire grew around me, the humans left me there, but the fire didn't hurt. It didn't really do anything. As the last of the humans left, he uttered a curse to keep me here, to keep me from killing anyone. He chuckled. That's why my axe can't hurt you. As I hung on the post, the fire slowly died. Then the most beautiful orc stood in front of me. She waved her hand and the chains came off my arms. She smiled at me and told me I would live a long life. He laughed again. A really long life. I can't leave this valley. I can't die, and time here is different from your time. In your time, you've probably only been here for a few minutes. One of my sons found his way here after I'd been here several years. He said I'd only been missing a few days, and he had come looking for me. I don't know what happened after that. I never saw him again. I've lost track of time. Sometimes it will rain for a year or more. Try finding dry wood when it won't stop raining. When the sun goes down, it is dark for almost 6 months. Since I've been here, I've only had one other visitor besides my son and you 3. Another young girl many years ago who looked a little like your friend here. He looked at Sarah. Sarah looked a little nervous. My mother told me stories about her great-grandmother, stories that she'd met the fallen orc when she was very young. They thought they were just stories because she said she was gone a long time and she was only missing a day. Jasper laughed. Yeah, she spent a whole year with me. She was a cute little thing. I hated to let her go. Emily looked at him. What can I do to help? He laughed again. There's nothing that can be done. He thought about it for a minute, then said, Come visit me. It would give me something to look forward to in the years to come. Emily took something out of her pocket and handed it to Jasper. What is this? He said. In one of my dreams, I gave you this, she said. He opened his hand and looked at a small pink pearl. He looked puzzled. I don't know why. I've carried it with me since I started having dreams. He smiled and looked at her. I will then carry it with me till I see you again. Sarah and Brett both stood at the same time. Emily gave Jasper a huge hug, touched his face, and whispered, I will come back. I will see you again. I will walk with you as far as I can, he said. He stood and walked beside Emily as they followed Sarah and Brett up the old brick road to the edge of the valley. They didn't speak, but walked in silence. At the crest of the hill, she turned to Jasper. "Goodbye. I will be back." He smiled and took her hand. "I will see you again." Sarah, Brett, and Emily took another step forward and felt the temperature change and looked back. Jasper was gone. It wasn't long before the three friends were back at the cart. It was still hidden on the side of the road where they left it. "Should we head back?" Brett asked. "No," Emily answered. "It's just noon." They looked up and noticed the sun had moved directly overhead. As they walked in silence, Emily thought of the orc in the Forbidden Valley. How much time had already passed since they left? Would he remember her when she returned? They arrived at the market and set up their cart for business. The tomatoes sold fast. A couple hours later, they were sold out. They packed up the cart and headed home. As they traveled, Brett and Sarah joked about the day's events. Emily hung back a little, lost in her thoughts. They stopped and rested at the same place they had in the morning. The old brick road could barely be seen heading east. After some light conversation, they got up to finish their journey. Soon they were approaching Emily's home. Emily kicked her foot in the dirt and a small pebble moved. It was pretty with a pink shine to it. She picked it up and rolled it around in her hand. Holding it up to the light, she noticed it was a pink pearl.
All right, it's finished. That was a really long time. I'm looking at 2.5 hours. I do think it's quite lovely. It's a cute little unicorn. I like the way it sparkles. It is just on cardboard. But yeah, that'll look cute on her wall. I do want to give a big thank you to my mom for providing me with this lovely background. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.